This is Hillary Rodham Clinton. I always have to do that. With Alex Wagner briefly answering and talking about this subject here. Let's play it.
Tucker Carlson is in Moscow right now interviewing Vladimir Putin.
Right.
The first American, I'll say, journalist to interview Putin since the war in Ukraine began. What does that tell you about Tucker Carlson and right-wing media and also Vladimir Putin?
Well,
I like to play this game sometimes where before I get the answer from the guests. Do you have any guesses what you might think, knowing Hillary Clinton? This is just something fun to do. Nothing. So nobody's gonna write this down. You can hold your word to it. But what do you think she's gonna say?
I bet she uses the expression "a gift to Putin" or something like that, or Kremlin talking points, or a gift to the Kremlin, or something like that. Right. I mean, she's been saying everything's either Kremlin controlled or a gift to the Kremlin for the past 10 years. I mean, hell, I think I and RT and anyone that ever told the truth about her or ever told the truth about the real emails that we all saw of her corruption. We were all Russian. We were all Russian-backed, Russian-controlled. This has been her thing for years and years.
Yeah, so it seems like you weren't born yesterday, Lee. Like, you know who this person is. So let's listen and see if you're right.
Well, it shows me what I think we've all known. He's what's called a useful idiot. I mean, if you actually read translations of what's being said on Russian media, they make fun of him. I mean, he's like a puppy dog. He somehow has, after having been fired from so many outlets in the United States, I would not be surprised if he emerges with a contract with a Russian outlet, because he is a useful idiot. He says things that are not true. He parrots Vladimir Putin's pack of lies about Ukraine. So I don't see why Putin wouldn't give him an interview.
The establishment seems to be very, very scared. But Lee, I think ding, 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 ding. If this was a game show, you won. That was the correct answer that you gave there. It took her a little while to actually say the word Putin, but she made sure she included in there of people still living. I think
it's funny.
You know how everybody was waiting for Kissinger? I think she's the next person everybody's kind of waiting for. But go ahead, sir. You're going to chime in.
Well, it's funny that she says if you read the translations of Russian media, but of course, none of them want you to read the translation of Putin's speeches, because I'm not saying you're going to agree with every word, but if you read Putin's speeches, you're probably going to think that a lot of it is at least closer to the truth than the U.S. propaganda that we're getting. So they don't want you reading translation of Putin's speeches at all. And I think what she and the U.S. ruling class are worried about is that, Tucker Carlson's such a mainstream host that you're going to have millions upon millions of Americans actually seeing in English what Putin has been saying.
Right. And this is what I was saying about narrative control. It's a fear. Like, to me, anytime you see, when you begin to see maybe one of these five faces, and we're seeing all of them now, Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, or Barack. So if you start to see the Clintons or the Obamas, they're either deathly scared or the poll numbers are not looking great. And right now, that's actually describes what's happening for Joe Biden and the establishment, at least the Democratic side.
And also, every time they trot her out, it's like, or any of them, they trot out Bush, or they trot out Bill Clinton, or they trot out Obama, or they trot out Trump, or what. Like, these are all massive, massive war criminals. These people have lied to you for decades and decades. Every tenet of Russiagate has collapsed. Every tenet of the WMD story was bullshit. Like, these people have lied to you, and they are massive war criminals. They're covered in blood. And so the idea that you would put them on TV and say, here's the truth, here's the reality. It always amazes me that anyone talks to any of these people and acts like what they say matters when we know they are the biggest psychopathic liars that exist.
I absolutely agree. I find myself saying that a lot this stream. Let's get to some reaction and then we'll move to the next story. Just now, this was added later because had no idea people were so invested in this as like across the board. You'll see what I mean when I say across the board. So you have somebody in politics right here, RFK Jr., who's also running, who's also been interviewed by Tucker. I would say they consider each other to be friends. I think that's what they said in the interview. But let's read what he says. Mainstream media journalists, that's right, have interviewed Putin many times before. The only difference now is that they can't control the narrative. Zelensky has been given numerous primetime interviews. Osama bin Laden has been interviewed before. We have a right to hear from everyone, no matter how you feel personally about them. That's RFK. So now let's get into some that may be a little bit surprising. You tell me if this is surprising. Mick Mill. To rapper Mick Mill. Now, maybe I'm assuming too much, but I didn't know Mick Mill was, a person into politics. But he actually chimes in himself, and he says, "Let me see what's going on before we get caught in a war we don't have nothing to do with." What do you say when something like an interview can get such a broad reaction from a broad spectrum of people like RFK, who's into politics, and then Mick Mill, who's from the streets of Philadelphia and a rapper? What do you think about that?
I mean, it shows that, I in my perfect world, Tucker Carlson is not a massive personality. Like, this is
Nothing wrong with that.
a scary right winger who's been, on media ever since he was 12 years old in a bow tie, and just it seemed just failed upwards for his entire life. But he is huge. There's no denying it. Very popular. And so in my perfect world, he's not that popular, but it shows how popular he is. This interview, assuming it's allowed to even be platformed, will receive millions and millions of views. And, a lot of people will take it in. So that's a positive in terms of people learning about their world. And I appreciate that. But yeah, it is kind of crazy to see so much reaction. And of course, the reason the mainstream, you have Adam Schiff on the screen, the reason the mainstream is freaking out is because this is the type of thing they've tried to cover up for years and years. This is the type of thing that would not have been allowed when Tucker was on Fox News. And it's scary to them.
I wonder, and I'm just thinking out loud, I don't have any evidence, but I wonder if Elon Musk, being that it is on his platform, and of course something like this would be great for his platform, bringing eyes to his platform, if he had anything maybe to do with it. But to your point, Adam Schiff. I don't think I've ever read an Adam Schiff tweet ever. I don't think I've ever done so. But he also says, maybe I won't say that, but there are idiots and useful idiots and really, really useful idiots in Tucker Carlson. Now, this is the guy who pushed Russiagate. He has the audacity.
He was like the face. He and Hillary were the face of Russiagate.
Yes. Now, final reaction that we're going to get, that's Glenn Greenwald. Glenn says Zelensky closed opposition media outlets over outlets February 20th, 2022. His regime just murdered an American for the crime of criticizing him. That's
Gonzalo Lira.
Gonzalo Lira. It's not a surprise that Ukraine's loudest supporters, like Adam Schiff, want the U.S. to copy Ukrainian tyranny by having the FBI investigate journalists. And Glenn is reacting to somebody's reaction. And I don't know this person, but it says Jay in Kyiv. Listen, look at this reaction. Tucker Carlson is stopped in Moscow, praised by a local, timidly responds that he's merely in town to look around, says he's maybe will interview Putin. The FBI needs to be all over this piece of shit. And it's just a video. I don't need to play the video, but you can see it. Somebody had a hidden camera, just, a fan. asking him questions like that, and they have him on here. So the liberal minions, like the people who eat up the blue, the vote blue no matter who crew, there's a violent crew in those midst, and they don't like to talk about it. They always like to talk about the violent red side, the people who violently act, and they're from the conservative side. But there's a violent, or maybe I shouldn't say violent, let's say unhinged fashion, and this is one of them, because this is merely for an interview, which is astounding to me. But any final words? We're going to move on. Any final words on this Tucker interview, the reaction, before we move to the next thing?
No, just it also shows the world that our media is in now, that what little bit Tucker Carlson did that was outside of the Overton window, outside of what's allowable on mainstream airwaves, which was not much. It was, I think it was that CIA segment. It was a few segments here and there about probably what factions control our government. And I think, honestly, that's probably what got him kicked off television. But it shows how much, and they were willing to kick off the most popular news host on all of television. I think he was, as much as I'm dismayed about that, but they took him off for a few segments. I mean, they've taken off massively popular people. Phil Donahue was taken off for being against the Iraq War, even though he was MSNBC's top show. Ed Schultz, Jesse Ventura, Chris Hedges, these hugely popular personalities. They don't, like, when it comes to protecting the empire, they don't actually care about ratings. They care about ratings until it comes down to protecting the empire.